number one bullshit guy. He do the wee woo.
Good morning. It is Monday, January the 3rd, and this is The Drill. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So after the Daily Declaration for Spiritual Warfare and the Star Spangled Banner and the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have, let's see here, Critical Ear, January 6th, Tipping, Be Preemptive, Know versus Think, all that and more when I come back. Thank you. And now the introduction to the Daily Declaration, the book Daily Declarations for Spiritual Warfare. The most important reasons we were given the Bible, the Word of God, are so that we can know the wonderful plans that God has for us, experience His presence in our lives, and be equipped to fulfill His will on earth. The Bible contains God's words, the specific things He knew we would need to know in order to live a life that pleases Him. He wants us to hear His voice in our spirits, no matter what the circumstances are in life or how many other voices are pressing upon us for our attention. His voice rises above the din and confusion of all other sounds. If we had learned to listen for His voice and to recognize Him when He is speaking to us, God's presence in our lives and His words within our spirit can dispel the greatest sorrow, cut through the clouds of distraction and confusion, and rise above the threats and taunts of demonic spirits that would bind us to their evil, godless philosophies, and snatch us from God's promise of eternity with Him. But God's Word cannot do any of these things unless we have diligently studied His written Word and learned to recognize His voice of revelation speaking in our spirits. It cannot guide us on the path of righteousness or keep us out of the captivity of Satan unless we know it. It will not instruct in spiritual warfare in our battles with Satan and his demonic forces unless it has become our warfare victory manual. This book is filled with God's words for us today. It is written in His voice, and reading it will be like sitting at His feet as He speaks to us about our daily interactions and needs. It seeks to articulate the thoughts of God for His children. It will inform your day, guide your path, strengthen your resolve, and provide your defensive strategies against Satan. God Himself spoke to us about the importance of knowing and hearing His words when He said, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it." Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 to 11. Use this book to allow God to sit with you in conversation each day and to fulfill your spirit with His counsel and guidance. It will enrich your life and prepare you to be victorious in each circumstance and situation that you face. God's Word, whether written or whispered silently in your spirit, will be all you need to live a life that is fully pleasing to Him. And that was the introduction to the book called Daily Declarations for Spiritual Warfare. Thank you, thank you. The true conservative uses the word know, as in knowledge, instead of the word think. A lot of times people are going to ask you, what do you think? Or what do you feel? And you'll hear people say things like, well, I feel this, or I think that. It's weak. It is incredibly weak. And in order for the true conservative to project strength, he or she needs to say, no, I know this, I know that. And if you don't know, if you're being asked about something which you have no knowledge of, then you simply say, I don't know. But stay away from the word think and the word feel. Again, to review, the true conservative uses the word know rather than the word feel. Thank you. So, to the greatest extent possible, by the way, one of the other things that a true conservative does, wherever possible, is preempt. A lot of people say, what do I do? What do I do? You know, something's happening, CRT, something else. What do I do? What do I do? In a lot of cases, it's too late. Okay, we all like to believe when the left says that anything is possible. And if anything is possible, nothing's too late. But it's just not true. If you look at the restrictions, the lockdowns that are done by the governors, it's too late to protest that. Way, way too late. And what we should have done was protest that when that law was created. When the legislature came out and said, here's a nifty law where the governor gets to be a dictator, during an emergency, that's when we should have protested. Okay, and we wouldn't have this issue today. We wouldn't have to bother with it. Wouldn't be any mask mandates, no vaccine mandates, no vaccine passports, et cetera, et cetera. So timing is key. Not just anything is possible. Some things are possible. Some things are impossible. And too late is too late. So you need to preempt. And so one of the ways you can do that is you go into, let's say, a work situation. If you're getting an interview and situation, and ask them. So something to the effect, find a test question. Something subtle, maybe not something not so subtle, but go out and ask them, for instance, do you guys here, is this company like Donald Trump? And see what kind of response comes back. If they get something like, well, no, we don't, Donald Trump sucks or whatever, you need to seriously consider going somewhere else to work. Okay. You're a Trump supporter and you're going to work in a company full of Trump haters. That's a really ugly scenario. Okay. Ideally, you want to work in a place that shares values. Okay. You value the things that Donald Trump was standing up for and represented during his presidency, and ideally you want to work for a company that shares that value. So preempt And like I said, ideally, then what you would do is if they say, well, no, we hate Donald Trump, and you say, well, you know what? Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Withdraw my application. I'll go somewhere else. And it sends a message, a loud message to businesses. Another one is CRT. That's an excellent qualifier. Hey, by the way, you guys aren't into CRT, are you? And if they are, then and they say, well, yeah, we do have CRT classes. Bye. See ya. Give me my application back. I'll go somewhere else. Especially these days. These days, it's an applicant's market. Everybody's looking to hire. Everyone's looking to hire, so they really can't afford to throw people away. So, but the point is, you don't want to be in a position where 6 months, 6 years down the line, all of a sudden, hey, CRT, what? Because now it's too late. You're going to object. It's going to be you're too late. The other thing is, again, is also preemptive, is what I've talked about in the past, which is never, ever tell a business what your sex is and never tell them what your race is. It's none of their damn business. And this protects you again. You now have a CRT situation. Hey, how do you think they're going to get all the white people to go to this white person rehabilitation class? They're going to go into their files and find out what boxes they checked in terms of race and sex, particularly race, and find all the people that check the box that says Caucasian/white, and go to them, send them an email. You got a white boy class to attend next Monday. Okay, so you want to avoid that? Don't answer it. Put refuse to state on that. But again, to review, preempt. The true conservative is preemptive. You preempt problems and qualify the company you're going to work for. Don't be passive about this. Don't be reactive about things. And you want to make sure that you're going to be working for a company that shares values. Yeah, thank you. So tipping, and that's another place where our culture has vastly changed, and not changed for the better, changed for the worse. It's become all screwed up. But anyways, I was at a place with a friend. We went out to lunch, and so I was. My friend noticed that she noticed that I was not going to give the waitress the 18%, which is the latest arbitrary standard for tips, 18%. So I wasn't going to give her the full 18%. So she was wanting to know why. I said, well, my food wasn't prepared the way I wanted it to. And she then said, but that's not the waitress's fault. Okay. It's making what sounded like in a vague way, an objection or rebuttal. And I had to ask her several times. So you're saying I should give her 18%? And then, of course, she comes back and says, well, no, I'm not saying that. Because everybody's scared today. Everybody's scared to make the bold statement, except me, because I'm the only true conservative in the United States today, to make the bold statement. No, that's not what I'm saying. So we had to go back and forth on that before I could finally get her to admit that, yes, she wanted me to give her the full tip, the full 18%. And then that's when I got to explain to her, look, they made a mistake, whether it was made by the cook or made by the waitress. We actually don't know whether or not she bothered to communicate my wishes for in terms of the preparation of the food. But the point is, somebody has to pay for that mistake. Has to. It's either going to be the waitress in terms of a lower tip, or it's going to be me by giving her a tip she doesn't deserve. And when I pointed that out to her, she understood then. She got where that was coming from. I said, perhaps if, this is maybe bad for the waitress, but it's going to be up to her to make sure that she gets things straightened out in the kitchen. Okay, if it's the chef that screwed this order up, then she needs to make sure she gets with him and say, next time don't screw up the order. Something to that effect. But anyways, again, somebody's got to pay for the mistake, and it's not going to be me. There's completely irrational and unreasonable to expect me to pay for somebody else's mistake. In essence, shielding them from the consequences of their actions. The other thing I wanted to get into with the tipping is, and how the culture has changed, is that you have tipping at Starbucks, and it's wrong. Tipping at Starbucks and a lot of other places where it's just wrong. And the reason that it's wrong is, again, you're tipping. Tipping is something you do after the fact. Tipping is usually done when you have service. You sit at a table, a waitress comes up to you, takes your order, brings you your food, and you tip based on the quality of the food and the quality of the service. That's not happening at Starbucks and other places, fast food type places. You're paying up front. Okay. And so what you're doing then is you're tipping blind, so to speak, because you could go ahead and give them, 18% or whatever, and then get the order screwed up and the service is lousy. And plus, again, you have to do all the work. But again, if their attitude is bad, you've already tipped them. You can't get back. You stick your hand back into the tip jar and take it back. That's why tips are always appropriate after the fact, after you've gotten your order. Okay, then you have your order, you eat whatever you're going to eat, drink whatever you're going to drink, and then you pay for it, and that's when you give the tip. Okay, so then if there's any misbehavior on the part of the employees, you can address it at that point. But if you tip up front, then it defeats the whole purpose of having a tip. Same thing happens with in some of the food delivery apps, Grubhub, for instance. In Grubhub, the customer's expected to tip up front. Okay, and so again, bad idea. Grubhub shouldn't be doing that. They should be taking things along the lines of Postmates. Postmates and who else? It is Point Pickup is another one app where you tip afterwards. The customer tips after the fact. That makes sense. Okay, you get your product, you get the service, and then you can make a decision as to what kind of tip you're going to leave. And the other thing that happens when you do it the wrong way is you end up getting cheating. For instance, with Instacart, the tip is supposed to be up front. And what drivers will do is they look for the batches that have the highest dollar signs, usually the biggest tips. And so now what the customers will then do is they will put, knowing that their order is going to sit and languish if they have a small tip up front, they will put a big tip up front. Then I will go and I will deliver the items, and then, because it's not final until a customer pays for or okays payment. Okay, and they have in the contract the right to alter the tip. Okay, so some customers will do is they will maybe give a $5 or $10 tip on a particular order, and then after everything is said and done, it's been delivered, then they only give you $2.50. So this way they have tricked you into taking the order first because it looks like you're going to get a big tip, when in reality they have no intention of giving you that type of tip. So again, it's cheating, and so cheating is infectious. You want to one person starts to cheat, everybody else then starts doing the same thing. there's little cheats and little ways of getting around the rules and whatnot of Grubhub and all the other Instacart, for instance. Instacart doesn't seem to do it anymore, but they used to time you, right? So you go into and every item you're getting is timed to the second. And if you're not keeping up with this supposed arbitrary average, then you get docked points. When you get docked points, then you get fewer batches and you make less money. So one of the ways around it is that you don't push the start shopping button until you've already gotten maybe half the items. And that gives you a good head start. Then you're always ahead of the game. But it's a cheat. And I'm cheating because they're cheating. They're cheating by having contractors instead of employees so that they can cheat the state of California out of taxes and fees. And the state of California is cheating people by requiring these types of rules and regulations in the first place. So cheating begets cheating. Thank you. The anniversary of the I don't even know how I want to describe this. The January 6th is coming up, and there's supposed to be some. Apparently, the vice president is going to make some sort of a speech about it. Now, forget about what the left says about it. The people that are really doing damage to conservatives and conservatism are the people that claim to be conservative or right of center or whatever the hell they claim to be. Sean Hannity, Hugh Hewitt, in particular, they come out and make sure that they bend over backwards to let everybody know, hey, I decry violence of all sorts. I objected to what was going on in Portland, and I object to what happens on January 6th. Well, good for you, you asshole. What have you done there to help conservatives and conservatism? Nothing. Maybe you're going to create some situation where you have now more credibility or integrity. You're trying to demonstrate your integrity and your credibility. Who you're trying to demonstrate that integrity and credibility to, I don't know. Maybe Nancy Pelosi. Maybe you're trying to impress her, or maybe you're trying to impress AOC. But those are people I wouldn't want to try to impress. They're not worth impressing. And what the main thing I've always said about the January 6th is that what happened there was not conservative. Okay, it's not truly conservative. True conservatives, number one, are not looking to create a movement. And number two, because they're not looking to create a movement, they don't go looking for trouble. We're not interested in instigating any type of riots or revolutions or anything of that nature. We're interested in taking life a day at a time. We're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for paradise. We take life as it comes, making the presumption for the status quo until there is an obvious case for change. Now, I've also said, because the January 6th situation was situation was supposedly over as a protest. It was designed to be a protest against the what was perceived to be, and actually said to be by President Trump, fraud. That there is an election fraud that was going on, and that the American people were in effect disenfranchised by this fraud. And I've said it before, you have to plead fraud with specificity. That means you've got to not only break down the details, who, what, where, when, and why, but you also have to, again, who is the most important thing. In other crimes, you can tell a crime has been committed, murder, for instance, without knowing who the suspect is. Not so with fraud. If you're going to allege fraud, you have to have somebody you can point the finger to at. So in the case of the 2020 elections, if you have evidence that says Nancy Pelosi was responsible for or engaged in a conspiracy with other people to defraud the American people of their constitutional rights to vote, now you're going somewhere. But the problem is that Donald Trump and his lawyers never, ever named names. They never came out and said that who it is that they were accusing of perpetrating these frauds. And without that, you can't make the case. It's not surprising that court after court after court, including the Supreme Court, threw out their suits. It's just not surprising. Because again, and I'm not even a lawyer, and I know, enough to know that you have to be very specific with fraud, because you can ruin people's reputation otherwise. And so you have to be very specific when you do this. They weren't, and so they still haven't been. There's still nothing coming from President Trump and his lawyers about who the fraudsters are. And so I'm very, very disappointed about that. But, as far as the protest was concerned, it shouldn't have even really taken place because they didn't have the evidence. The courts were right. There was no evidence to support any charges, and that's that. Okay. If we find some evidence that points to individuals that committed fraud, then we can get excited about it and get upset and make some protests. But other than that, it's if they get away with it, they get away with it, right? We all take shortcuts here and there. Most of the time, we get away with it. Okay, and these folks, if they committed fraud, the left, Nancy Pelosi's, if they did, they got away with it. I don't like that. It pisses me off. I'd rather have Donald Trump as a president than the bum that we have now. But I don't have any evidence. There's no legal way to change things. So we put it that way. So, and again, then the incidents that happened in January 6th were not conservative in nature. Conservatives don't go looking for trouble. We're not looking to instigate some type of revolution. We're not looking for paradise. We're simply looking to maintain the status quo and change when change is absolutely necessary. Thank you. So I was talking with a friend of the other day about true conservatism, and they were kind of confused, and they said, so you can't, if you're a true conservative, you can't watch CNN, you can't watch MSNBC, you can't watch certain movies, that kind of thing. And I said, no, that's not the way it is at all. The true conservative can watch or listen to anything that they want to. The key is to watch or listen with a critical ear. That's the key. Whereas on the left, they always want you to have an open mind. The true conservative listens with a critical ear. And by the way, not just to CNN, MSNBC, something like that, but also to Fox, also to the right-wing talk show hosts. If they are going ahead and aiding and abetting the left in various ways, shapes, and forms, you want to know it. And you want to know how this is happening so that you don't end up doing the very same thing or making other mistakes such as worshiping. Sean Hannity will worship the police department, for instance, or police officers. And the police officers are unionized nationwide. They've got their own unions, each city and county, etc. And they're not worth worshiping. First of all, from the standpoint that the only person you should be worshiping is Jesus Christ. If you feel the need to worship, then go to Mass and worship Jesus Christ. But the other part of this is that just because you're a police officer doesn't mean you're automatically a hero. Same thing with firefighters. Not their job isn't automatically heroic. And because they're unionized, they have a tendency to do things in their own interests, what's in their own best interests, rather than what's in the interests of the community that they're paid to protect and serve. Okay, the fire departments have a tendency to wait. If you call for you see a fire and you call the fire department, call 911. Hey, there's a fire. This happened to me with a dumpster fire. It also happened when, anyways, you'll stay with the dumpster fire. Dumpster fire, so I'm calling it in. 911, yes, what is going on? It's a dumpster fire at such and such address. And so it took a while to hear the sirens and have them show up and put the fire out. And I found out later that the reason that the firefighters take so long to get to a call is because they will not respond to one call. Okay. I was apparently the first caller, so they're not going to respond. They're going to wait for a second call. Okay. And they're waiting for that second call because they're concerned about, there's apparently a lot of people that think it's funny to call 911 and make a false report of a fire, just so they can get see the fire engines come out. So to reduce the number of false reports, they wait for a second call on a fire or whatever. And the reason they're doing this, they claim it's safety, but it has nothing to do with that. When you get into the truck, first of all, everybody has to get out of your way. You've got a siren going. You're in a big red truck. And ostensibly, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say that more than likely, they've got seatbelts. Okay. It's like if I go out and I'm going to do something, I'm making a delivery, and it's a false alarm, so to speak, I'm under no greater danger dealing with that false alarm than I would be if I was dealing with the real thing. Okay. I'm still wearing my seatbelts. Okay. And I'm still taking the reasonable precautions. So if it's not safety, what is the issue? Money. Every time the city has to roll one of those trucks, they are spending money. And the only way for these folks to get a raise is one of two ways. Either they raise taxes and fees, have the city raise taxes and fees to pay for it, or they save the city money. Okay, so in the name of saving money so that the next time their contract is up for renewal, they can get a raise, they leave you and your property in jeopardy. So imagine that. Your house is on fire. You call the fire department, and they're not going to respond until they get a second call. Now, if this is happening in the middle of the night, who's going to be the second caller? So I guess it would behoove you to make the phone call and then run next door to your neighbors, knock on the door, and get them to make the second call so that the fire truck will respond before your house burns down. Okay, so the point is that don't get sucked into all of the drama. The advantage the police officers and the fire department have is that they can mask all of this self-interest with drama. Okay, they're frequently involved in dramatic events, and that helps to shield them from critical eyes and critical ears. So that's the thing again. So to review, can you can you read or see or watch whatever you want? Absolutely. But do it with a critical eye, critical ear, and then you're not going to be taken in. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adieu to the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers. And before I go, I wanted to, one last thing on tips, that on the tip situation, if the key is timing. If you're tipping, giving the money on the back end, you're tipping. So what are you doing if you give them the money on the front end? You're bribing. You're issuing a bribe. Think about it. And until next time, be bold, be smart, be beautiful, and always remember that the left has no power, no authority, and they can't win.